casual dining in style. Ice cream and pizza, bangers and mash, champagne and caviar. Eat, drink and be merry, for tomorrow we diet. Don't be discreet, give yourself a treat and tuck into food and drink.
In this programme we have everyday vegetables that do you good, sweet breath, fish and chips, coley dressed as cod, champagne and sparkling Simon Bates.
And these, which I'm just going to show you, see, I've given our testers some rather revolutionary goodies from America. There's the ice cream, which you can see over here, and there's some chocolates. What do you think of that ice cream?
Not too good, frankly.
What's wrong with it?
It tastes like garlic.
Is it? OK, let's go to the second row now, where our chocolate tasters are busy tasting.
It's horrible.
What's wrong with it?
Well, it tastes of garlic, and I don't like garlic.
OK, the lady on the left.
The same. It tastes like garlic.
Don't you like garlic?
Yeah, I love garlic, but not in chocolate.
Have another nibble and see what you think. Pop the whole lot in. Go on, pop the whole lot in. See what happens.
Have you got a bucket?
What they've been tasting is nothing less or more than a crazy new development in the United States. It's garlic ice cream, garlic nut sundae, and candied garlic chocolates.
Well, the recipes for all that food come from California, where they're part of a small manifestation of a growing garlic subculture. The Garlic Times is an indispensable part of the kit for the Garlicomane, with advice on the health benefits of eating garlic for the heart, meningitis, dieting, diabetes, blood pressure, not to mention its use in a shampoo to cure baldness. The lettuce pages tell tales of garlic curing rabies in Brazil, being useful as an aphrodisiac and reducing prison warden harassment in jail by reason of the smell. The recipe pages feature figs in wine and honey with garlic, garlic-fed piglets stuffed with saffron rice and oil-exploded double squid with garlic. There's silver and gold garlic jewellery for sale, the latest news of the mini garlic press, the self-cleaning garlic press and the ultimate garlic press. And there's garlic graffiti. History repeats itself. So does garlic. Lloyd J. Harris, he's the garlic head with the moustache, and he formed the Society for Lovers of the Stinking Rose. He also runs the campaign to fight mouthwash, Eat Garlic, and he distributes T-shirts and badges. His book, rather unimaginatively, is called The Book of Garlic, but it's prescribed reading for any garlic freak. History, mysticism, development, they're all here, plus a vicious attack on the British, who apparently symbolise the rejection of garlic. There are so many lovers of the stinking rose in Berkeley, California, that 2 weeks ago they had their first annual Garlic Week. Most of the town's restaurants had special garlic dishes, and the final banquet had meals all featuring garlic, and that included the recipes that we've just been trying. The big event of the year next weekend is the Gilroy Garlic Festival. Last year there were 120,000 people who consumed 10 tons of garlic. And in the end, the reason for it all really seems to be a celebration of garlic's health-giving properties as listed in the Garlic Book. To begin, it's for coughs and colds, aches and pains, gout and rheumatism, arterial tension, fevers, convulsions, fainting, epilepsy, parasites, ringworm, acne, hemorrhoids, head and scalp problems, open flesh wounds, intestinal ailments, neuralgia, athlete's foot, insomnia, and of course the most important use of all, fending off vampires.
Strong claims for garlic as a cure-all. Dr. Malcolm Stewart's with me, who's a medical herbalist. Are they correct claims, do you think, Malcolm?
Well, since we're talking about a mini factory of chemical substances in a plant, it's not surprising that those little chemical substances can do all sorts of different things to different people. And the medical value of garlic is expressed in all sorts of medical abilities, if you like. It is antibacterial, it is antifungal. It kills viruses, it lowers high blood pressure, it reduces blood sugar levels. It is a topical irritant, it warms the skin, and so on and so forth.
And how does it do all those things?
Well, different people who are suffering from different sorts of conditions will be able to preferentially take up, from the foodstuff, if you like, those chemical little packets that the body needs and effect a state of balance in the individual, which we call health. You're imbalanced in ill health, and you're balanced when you're healthy. And all that the body does is to take out what it needs from the right plant material, and you've got a state of health.
It's sort of different strokes for different folks.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Historically, is that true as well?
Well, we can go back to the first recorded strike, probably, the Great Pyramid of Cheops, when the slaves apparently were being given a garlic clove a day to keep the go lighter away, and they ran out of cloves, and they went on strike because it was a strengthening agent for this sort of work.
Oh, I see. So that's historical aspect, and that presumably holds true today, obviously. Garlic is just one of a lot of vegetables in the kitchen. We have a whole stack on the table here. Do they all have health-giving properties?
Well, all green plant material has some degree of beneficial effect or some degree of adverse effect. So we're talking about a range from a clinically active substance through a foodstuff to a poison. And the onion, for example, which is closely related to the garlic, is probably even more valuable than the garlic itself. It contains vitamin A, B1, B2, B5, D, E, goodness knows what. We don't know enough about its chemistry to explain what it does, but it has so many therapeutic activities that we could spend all evening talking about it. We know, for example, about the artichoke. Medically, it's one of the very few plants that has a liver protective action. And in the 30s in Germany, the value of the artichoke receptacle, and I've got some here, of the leaf as well, was shown to protect the liver damage caused by toxic poisons in rats and other animals experimentally when challenged with poisons.
How fascinating. Now tell me about this chap here. It's fairly familiar.
Well, this is our modern relative of the wild plant smallage, celery, known only as smallage until the 17th century, developed by the Italian gardeners on the plains of the Po. It was an official medicinal plant. The leaf, the seed, and the root all contain high concentrations of an essential oil called apiol, and this oil has a number of values largely important in terms of soothing inflamed kidneys and bladders. A very strong diuretic, very strong diuretic. In fact, the fresh juice of celery really moves you.
That's a fascinating thought. Can we look at some of the other products you've got on this table?
Well, let's take a look at the lettuce, for example. This is the modern equivalent of that, which is the wild lettuce, official in 1799 in the London Pharmacopoeia as a sedative. The stem was sliced, out-dripped latex, that was collected, and it was an anodyne, pain-killing, sedative action. Now, the old cultivated lettuce, all the bitterness is taken out of it and most of the action, but it's still mildly soporific if taken in large quantities. Hops is much more soporific, particularly if taken with alcohol, obviously. It is the action of beer and ale, very interestingly, mimics the action of the hop. Hop is a painkiller. It is a calming agent. It's a bitter tonic, and so on and so forth. So it has all the actions of the whole beer.
How about these at the back here, these things?
Well, you've got ginger, long been used to calm the stomach, flatulent colic, dyspepsia, all sorts of things related to gastric disturbance. Now, it was thought to be great value in motion sickness. The Brigham Young University in Utah, March 1982, has now compared this with the most beneficial available drug and shown that ginger powder is better than this drug for motion sickness. And what's more interesting is that right beside it is an even older spice than ginger, galangale, which the Phoenicians used for seasickness. The two plants are very closely related, and if ginger has this anti-motion action, so does the galangale.
And this is the old perennial and the hardy annual, isn't it, really?
Parsley, what the Greeks called rock parsley to differentiate it from celery. A lot of actions relating to mucous membranes and the uterus. Very good for period pains and so forth.
Yes. All these goodies, though, or most of them, like the onion and so on, leave you with one little legacy, and that is bad breath. Any natural cures for bad breath?
Other plant materials with high content of essential oils.
Like?
Cardamoms, fennel, sweet flag, angelica, plenty of them. But of course parsley is the classic for garlic.
Thank you very much.
Champagne is the drink we always associate with a grand occasion. Real champagne is made from the grapes grown in a small region of northern France where the weather isn't all that good and the soil is pretty poor. But the chalk under the soil has produced distinctive tasting grapes for over 2,000 years. The champagne-making process is rigorously controlled by the French government to protect the reputation. They even lay down how much grape juice is allowed to be extracted from any given quantity of grapes. Fermenting the pressed grapes produces different wines from different vineyards, which are then blended by each champagne house to create their own distinctive flavour. And then it's bottled with extra sugar and yeast, so it'll ferment for a second time and become bubbly. The bottles are stored in underground cellars originally dug by the Romans for the same purpose. After 3 years, the sediment has separated out, so the bottles are now stored neck down and turned regularly to encourage the sediment to slide to the neck. The final process is to freeze the neck of the bottle and take the top off, so the ice plug with the sediment in it shoots out. The champagne that is lost is replaced with old wine and with sugar, and it's this addition that determines the final taste of the particular champagne and whether it will be sweet or demi-sec, dry or extra dry. The bottles are stored for a few months in a cool place, and then it's ready to drink. Well, we have various sorts of champagne here in the studio, as well as sparkling wines of every description. And to see what's the best value and some idea of how we might celebrate well but a bit more cheaply, here's our wine expert, Jill Goulden. Jill, is that complicated process we saw for making champagne really necessary?
It is actually. It's as necessary as the soil type, the grape variety, the climate. All these things go to make champagne. Ever since it was discovered in the 17th century by a dear old monk, Dom Perignon, champagne's probably been the most luxurious drink in the world, I suppose. He discovered by having strong bottles with a good cork, you could trap the natural CO2 which is given off during fermentation and have it in solution in the wine. And he said, I think I'm drinking the stars, and now we all drink the stars.
Lovely quote.
The most expensive wine we have here, or one of the most expensive, is called Dom Perignon, in fact, and it costs about £20 a bottle. A vintage wine made only from the grapes harvested in 1 year. And they have the best of everything. And also, they age the wine at their own expense. This bottle is about 7 years old, and so they've got no cash flow all that time, which makes it very expensive. Next down the expense, you have the Grand Marques, which is the names that you're familiar with, the Tétingers, Paul Rogers, that sort of thing. And they're expensive too, because no one really wants to buy something that's prestigious and cheap. And they have their own house style, and people tend to choose one they particularly like.
Would you care to put a price on those?
These are about £8 to £12. Supermarkets now have their own champagnes, very respectable champagnes, branded with a supermarket name. And they, like everything in a supermarket, do happen to be a bit cheaper. But not as cheap as this champagne, I found, which is £6.59. Very respectable, and the cheapest champagne I've managed to sleuth out.
What about these bottles here, which are labelled Méthode Champenoise? What does that exactly mean?
Well, this is the same method, all that twiddling and twirling that we saw, but it is made in a different area. The Saumur district in the Loire is very famous for its sparkling wines, and they make some good ones. Here, a very good buy, Méthode Champenoise, which means it's made in this bottle twiddling fashion, at £3.25. And Blanquette de Limoux, which comes from the south of France, is again another prestigious non-champagne sparkler. They also claim that they invented sparkling wine, but it's a bit of a fight between them, I think. These ones here come from Spain, where they've tried to give their sparkling wines some sort of prestige by calling them cava. And cava means méthode champenoise, again, except that they have automated the process a bit. It's slightly unglamorous. They load up the bottles in a kind of, it's called a girasol, which is a sunflower, if you like, and they then heave it around with a forklift truck, and they all shake up a bit, and it goes down, I think.
Does that compare well with French champagne?
It is different. I don't think that people should talk about being like champagne or not like champagne. It's a very nice sparkling wine. I don't think that you could possibly confuse the two. And this is about £4 a bottle. And it's very respectable, and you should buy it as a sort of £4 a bottle cava wine. This here is from California, and it says on the label, fermented in the bottle. That is in fact true, but after fermenting it in the bottle, instead of all the remouage business, they tip it back into a tank, filter it, and put it back in the bottle. So it's a sort of a bit of a cheat, really. £3.50 for that, and I think slightly clumsy, if you understand what I mean, a bit of a heavier wine, really. But the tank actually plays a very large part in making of sparkling wines. These wines here are all made entirely in a tank. They aren't fermented in the bottle for the second time, so it cuts down on all the labour and should cut down on the price. These people are trying to get a bit posh about it and have propellers in their tanks and things to try and make the wine a bit more mature and age it a bit more, and they're about £4.
But it doesn't really affect the taste, you don't think, to that extent?
It affects the bubbles quite considerably. They're much more clumsy, get up your nose a bit actually, and don't last so long in the glass. And it does, if you're a connoisseur, affect the taste, but not otherwise.
What about these here? Asti Spumanti.
Asti Spumanti. Poor old Asti has a terribly unfortunate name because people think it's rather a down-market drink. Not at all. It's extremely well made. It just happens to be a bit sweet, which is unfashionable at the moment. I think it's very refreshing, very fresh, and perfect with strawberries and cream. The one point here is that if you have Asti on the label, you're going to be paying a bit more because it has more restrictions than if you just have Spumanti.
Right at the end of the line, we've got the
Those
real
two.
cheapos that
They
Simon's
are
talking
real
about.
cheapos. They're about $1.99 a bottle, and they get the bubbles put in with a bicycle pump, literally. They're carbonated, and they're not great wines to begin with, but they are very cheap. I've actually got some glasses, actually, which I've poured out, and you'll see that the bicycle pump or carbonated wine will have the shortest lived bubbles. The tank fermented wine will have rather big and effervescent bubbles which don't have a long life, and the champagne will have little tiny strings of bubbles which go on for a very long time, and that's what you're paying for.
Jill Woolen, thank you very much.
And at that point, I think we'll bring the audience into it. We've given them a selection of 3 glasses, one each. One is a Krug 76 vintage champagne. The second is a Méthode Champenoise. And the third is a tank-fermented sparkling white wine. First of all, can you tell me, anyone who thinks they've been drinking the cheap white wine, fizzy white wine, would you put your hands up, please? Let's see, only 1, 2, 3, 4, very few, hands down. Let me go to the gentleman in the dark glasses at the back row. Did you like what you were drinking?
Yes, I did, actually, yeah.
Did you think it was champagne?
No, I put my hand up when you asked the first question.
Yes, exactly. So you thought that it was sparkling white wine?
Yeah, I did. That's partly because the bubbles seem to disappear rather quickly, and from what your expert's been saying, I thought I should say that.
Would you give that to your guests at a dinner party?
Yes, I would. I thought it was okay.
Well, you show tremendous perspicacity because you were, in fact, drinking sparkling white wine. Let me come to the front and ask that lady in the pink dress, who still has quite a lot left, what did you think you were drinking?
I thought I was possibly drinking sparkling white wine.
Did you like the taste of it?
I was a bit disappointed because I thought it smelt wonderful and I was looking forward to it, and I found it a bit sort of metallic.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you normally drink champagne?
When I can, yes.
Do you like champagne?
I love it, yes.
And would you serve that to your guests at a dinner party?
Not at a dinner party. If I was giving a very large party, if I could afford it, and they, you know, just wanted to have plenty of booze, I'd give them this, I
That's
think.
fascinating. You, I must tell you, were drinking Krug 76 vintage champagne.
No.
Yes, at about 20 to 26 pounds a bottle. Which is fascinating. And now let's just reveal the whole thing, which is that the front row were all drinking Krug 76, so be grateful for quite expensive mercies. On the second row, you were drinking Méthode Champenoise, and on the third row, and there's nothing personal in this, you were all drinking rather cheap fizzy wine. But what was fascinating about it, I think, was the fact that none of you really cared. You all enjoyed it in some way, shape or form. Thank you very much. Best Buys now with Jonathan Choate on fresh fruit and veg, and it looks, Jonathan, like it's veg very much.
Veg very much at the moment. All the tomatoes we're getting at the moment are really down in price. A terrific flush of tomatoes coming forward with this very warm weather we've been having. So tomatoes absolutely a Best Buy this week. Courgettes we're getting in now from our own growers, from Jersey, from Cyprus. Again, really down in price and a fraction of what they cost you for the rest of the year. So very good value at the moment. Onions are good. Aubergines, absolutely marvellous at the moment as well, and again, really reduced in price. And I must mention these wonderful English new potatoes. I mean, they're absolutely rock bottom, so you eat as many potatoes as you like all the time. Marrows too, extremely good. But of course, you can actually cook all these up together and make ratatouille now, just literally by chopping them all up, mixing with 2 tablespoonsful of oil in the pan, garlic, and there you've got the ratatouille, which you can freeze for the rest of the year.
Sounds marvellous. But how about the cukes, Jonathan?
Well, cucumbers, lovely, long, straight, green, beautiful cucumbers. Now, at one time we used to have problems with growing cucumbers because little insects would get into the glass houses where they hang down from the ceiling everywhere, and they'd make them pregnant. So you get a sort of bump on the end of the cucumber, you know? and the people didn't like burn pea cucumbers, so they decided to produce this new strain of cucumbers which is female and actually sterile. So there's no fun in being a cucumber now, I'm afraid, at all.
Do they taste as good as they used to?
Oh, taste extremely good, and the flavour at the moment and quality is very good indeed. That'll cost you about 35 pence. Look at the size.
And how about the fruit?
Fruit at the moment, soft fruit, we've still got red currants, black currants, some raspberries left if you can get them, and loganberries coming in now, so you should be able to make summer pudding, which is again wonderful and excellent for freezing. Very good quality. Nice fruit at the moment, about 30 to 40 pence for half a pound. We've also got these peaches, very good quality coming in now. Big crop from Italy this year, but the Italians have actually been changing over to more nectarines. Nice smooth skin, beautiful ruddy flavour, something like a cross between a peach and a plum, but delicious and very juicy indeed, about 25 to 30 pence.
Jonathan, thank you. Now then, there's a fish and chip shop in London that regularly crops up in the guides to good eating. This year's Good Food Guide says the biggest and best cars jammed outside, the biggest and freshest fish inside. And it's even trumpeted abroad. The New York Times wrote, by common consent, the best fish and chips in town. So I went over to the Seashell in Lisson Grove, just off the Marylebone Road, to try and find out just exactly what John Faulkner does to his fish and chips to make them so apparently different from everybody else's.
There is nothing that we do that anyone else couldn't do. It's quite easy. People like fresh fish. No gimmicks, there's nothing gimmicky in it, there's nothing unusual in it. It's just fresh fish fried in batter. They accept a lot, these customers. It's amazing. I mean, when it was snowing very hard, they were queuing up and there was a man virtually covered in snow. He'd been standing in the queue for a quarter of an hour, freezing cold, and he wanted a place on the bone. And I said, oh, it'll be another 10 minutes. That's all right. And they wait.
What are you here for?
Buy some fish.
For yourself?
No, for my wife. I don't like fish.
You don't like fish?
No, I just eat the chips.
How far have you come?
Oh, just from round the corner, Regent's Park.
You come round at a Rolls Royce to a fish and chip shop. Surely you could find one more locally that perhaps...
No, my wife says the fish here is very good.
Will you believe your wife, do you?
Well, she eats it, not me.
Why do your customers come in such droves to the Seashell?
I cannot tell you. I'll tell you a story. About 2 years ago, we had a very big company wanted to buy the shop. They came here with their ticker tapes and their little clickers, and they stood outside. And after a week, they came here and they said, well, where do the customers come from? And I said, I just don't know. I said, you'll have to ask them yourself. Then he started talking to people in the queue, and he asked this woman, and she said, oh, I come from Ilford. Well, Ilford's 15 miles away. And he said to this man, he said, well, where do you come from? Well, he said, I come from Gerrard's Cross. He said, well, oh, you come by the train? He said, no, he said, I come by bike.
I'm a very fussy housewife, and I know what's good and what's not good. And if I eat it, if I serve it up to my family, it's excellent fish.
We've been coming here for years, and the more we come here, the younger we get.
Really?
The wonder we feel younger.
Do you think you put that down to the fish, do you?
Absolutely, the quality of the food.
What's your batter made of?
Flour and water milk.
No herbs, no spices?
No herbs, no spices, no hidden ingredients, no little bits stuck in the bottom, and etc., etc. All it is just natural, good food.
John, one more quick word.
Yes.
Listen, it's 9:30. There are still hundreds of people waiting to be served. We've been here for 4 hours. You've been serving like a mad thing. We've spoken to hundreds of people. Not one person has had a bad word to say about you or your fish and chips, but no one can tell us the secret of them.
All I can say is, taste a piece, and you ought to find out.
Well, we all had dinner afterwards, and whatever the secret is, John's food is absolutely delicious. But Jim Spinks, who's head of trading standards for the London Borough of Croydon and used to be a fishmonger himself, had lunch at the Seashell. And what do you think's behind the magic quality?
Well, Simon, I think it's a case of getting the type of fish you actually ask for, and that fish being of absolute freshness, top quality, and cooked to perfection.
Sounds like hard work. If you fancy making your own fish, it might pay you to be a bit observant next time you're at the fishmonger. There have been a string of prosecutions recently under the Trade Descriptions Act. As the papers have reported, trading inspector smokes out a haddock fraud, purge on meat and fish cheats. So what's going on? Back to you, Jim. What is going on?
Well, it's a case of inferior fish, and usually of much lower price fish, being substituted for the high quality fish which most of us will perhaps know and enjoy. For example, true halibut, now costing about £3 per pound. Muck halibut, or Greenland halibut, you can buy at about £1 per pound, already filleted. And, well, there's no comparison in the quality. It is much inferior quality.
Yes.
On the other hand, you're paying, of course, a third the price. Another matter with place. Particularly in restaurants where you get perhaps a batter over it, it's covered in breadcrumbs, hiding the distinctive pink orange spots on the place.
Yes.
You may get fillets of flounder, of dab, and again, it's certainly an inferior quality fish. It's edible, it's pleasant, many people do like it, but it hasn't got, of course, that distinctive flavour of place, and is much cheaper.
Right, how about cod?
Cod again, yes, the possible substitutes for cod, things such as coley. Now, again, it's a case of only half the price, coley. And although when it's fresh, it's got this rather unpleasant colour, pinky grey. When it's cooked, that does whiten, and especially in the fish and chip shops, it's something which there is a possibility that it could be substituted.
Well, you're saying that coley in its own way is a bargain, but we've got to identify these fishes so that when perhaps the dishonest fishmonger offers them to us, we've got to make up our minds exactly what we are buying. What is the difference between coley, which is rather pink, and cod? How do we tell the difference?
Well, when it is fresh, in fact, the job is easy, because you can see that the cod has this generally white appearance, and coley, very distinctive, the greyish pink and relatively unpleasant appearance to it.
Yes, I see.
But of course, which will whiten when cooked.
And how about halibut?
And halibut, the true halibut has in fact got white side and the dark side.
Yes.
All mock halibut, both sides are of dark colour. One might be slightly darker than the other, but you don't get a white side. And that's the case, though, if they really wanted to fool you, perhaps they would take the skin off.
And there's no way you'd know?
Well, it's not until you eat it, then you'd notice the difference.
There's one more I want to just mention, and that's scampi and monkfish, which I know can be a bit of a fiddle. How would you tell the difference between scampi and monkfish, for heaven's sake?
Very difficult. But because when you do cut off pieces of this monkfish tail, they certainly do look and taste like scampi. Very difficult to tell the difference when they're cooked.
That's a problem, isn't it? Let's talk about taste. We have some tasters here who have been offered, well, coley and cod, witch and sole, and monkfish and scampi. Tasters, I'm going to ask you first of all, David, which of the two that you were offered did you prefer?
Well, there wasn't much in it. There's batter on both of them, which tends to disguise the flavour anyway.
Yes.
The taste was similar even under the batter, but the colour of this is slightly less pleasant, and I preferred this one mostly on grounds of appearance.
That's very interesting, because of course you didn't know which you were eating. You actually preferred the coley to the cod. How about you?
Well,
Sally?
I again found it extremely difficult to tell the difference between the two fishes, but I decided I liked the texture better of the one on my right.
That's interesting, because you went for sole, so that's one each, so to speak, for picking the correct one, if we can possibly do that. Though, of course, the incorrect one is cheaper. Scampi and monkfish. How about you, Barbara?
I think I've picked the correct one. I think that's the monkfish, and that's the scampi, but I can't be absolutely sure, but I still prefer this one.
Well, you got it absolutely right.
Oh,
you chose the one that was scampi as being the tastiest.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
That's all for tonight. More food and drink, same time next week. Have a chip. Good night.
Thank you. Nice thought. Good night.